Hello everyone, welcome to the Inside Show. Today I have a special guest from the 2013 Mechanical Engineering batch who is currently working as an e-commerce strategy manager at Cognizant and has various diverse knowledge in startups and angel investings from his side hustles. Let us learn how he manages so many things in life. Help me in welcoming Mr. Aditya Khokhar.
Hey, hi Shreyas. Really, this is such a delight to be on your show. I think this show is really growing up, and this is something that's really helpful for the students. Great to be part of this, Shreyas.
Yes. Thank you for being here as a guest. How is life right now? How are you doing? What exactly are your plans currently? And how is life during the pandemic?
So I think pandemic for all has been a little bit of a surprise. Things, whatever plans we had right in the first 2 months of 2020, I think everything changed when the lockdown came. But as a saying goes, never, sort of miss a crisis. Like in a way, a crisis always brings a lot of opportunities. So never let go a crisis waste. That was something I read some time back, and I thought 2020 was something when it was a time for me, and I think for everyone else, to make the most out of it. And I think pandemic, although a very saddening event in itself, but it did provide me with some of the opportunities that I think may not have been possible in normal scenarios. So owing to investment, spending more time with startups, I think that is something that pandemic has really given me an opportunity this year. So yeah, I tried my best to make the most out of this 2020 as a year.
Right. So let's just go back to where it all started. How was your experience at IIT Ropar, and did it have any lasting impact on your character, on your personality?
Yes, indeed. IIT Ropar was that place where I think most of us we turn from boys to sort of we move towards manhood in one way or another. But yes, IIT Ropar, I think it was a place is very special to me, and I feel very lucky that I have been part of IIT Ropar right when it was started. So right being there and seeing the birth of an IIT is something of a rare event. And I think our batch, our seniors batch, we did uh, uh, experience certain thing firsthand, which was something very rich, and did give us a lot of life lessons and learnings that sort of came handy in one way or another later on. But yeah, so in IIT it was mechanical was a little bit of as people know about it. The lectures were they started getting boring after a time, and most of the mechies, they know how the job reality was. So for us, it left us with a lot of time to tinker around with certain ideas, tinker around this whole startup space and startup world that at that time, under the shadow of Flipkart, was starting to grow in India. And yeah, we did dabble into a lot of these things, and I think that was a place where this whole I shall say this whole habit of being into some side hustle really grew within me. So yes, that was where it all started to take shape, Shreyas.
Right. So, how exactly was your personality affected, and how did you, like you mentioned, observing the birth of IIT Roper? Can you describe it?
Yeah. So it was a time when I could see that there was this guy. He was a professor, and he was carrying a water bottle for some of the students in the hostel. And then at the same time in the classroom, he was delivering this lecture on certain of some of the advanced topics in the field of sciences and philosophies. I think that was the moment when I saw that in times of like these, you have to do a lot of things, and that's where the whole entrepreneurial and startup spirit starts to take place, right? When you are in startup, you have to really wear multiple hats. And I think that is how we sort of took this thing within ourselves, that we have to do whatever it takes to sort of build this IIT. And that habit eventually went into our career as well, into our lifelong values as well, that never sort of refrain from doing anything that you really feel little, I won't say awkward, but little out of your league. I think this starting up of a new IIT, and we had to do all sort of things. Even internet connection was something that we had to sort it out at that point of time. And I think everything was new. We did not have water connection. We did not even had a very formal library per se, right? And then when the first cultural fest came over, everything had to be done, right from scratch. I think I shall say it was in itself sort of a big startup there that was going on. Everything was being done right from ground zero. So that is how it all started. But then, when we were in our fourth year, and when luckily our jobs and everything was sort of sorted in seventh semester, the eighth semester was something where I for the first time started thinking about, why not start something, and see where it goes. So at that point of time, it was not a business sense, it was not a business person inside me that was speaking it, but it was more like this whole glamour of doing something. And we were seeing all of these documentaries, we were seeing all of these movies, these English films that you start seeing in college. People start out in the garage, and then the whole story goes. And we thought, why not start something? And we thought of a couple of ideas which were not very lame if I look at hindsight. There was this idea of starting up a documentaries website. At that point of time, documentaries were something which were little scattered over internet. There was no such thing as Netflix at that point of time, at least in India. So we thought, hey, why not start this whole collection of documentaries which are all, anyways freely available over YouTube? Why not build a catalog and start to sort of cater to these people who really like to get into documentaries and can search for them through topics and all that stuff. It was a brief idea. We did delve on it. We worked on it like for a couple of months, I suppose. But then, as the college ended, the idea did not really took off, but it left that spark that, maybe something more has to come. So yeah, that's how it all started, Shreya. That's how I remember it very clearly.
Right. So now that you have so much experience about startups and you've also done an MBA, which we'll definitely cover in the coming conversation. So what is your point of view on starting up in college? Like, does it fare out well in the end, or do we have to just is it just for the basis of experience early on in your career?
I think startups is a very different ball game, for everyone. It's not something that works for everyone in a similar way. Uh, the way it happens is, it's just not that what you want to do. There are a lot of factors that you have to consider. Of course, one's financial cushion is something that plays a big part. There are people for whom a job is something very necessary after your college. So starting up can be too risky, and when you have that risk sort of hovering over your mind day in and day out, you are not able to think very clearly. And in a startup, to be very successful, you have to think very clearly, like what to do. But if you have a certain tension, certain confusion always humming over you in your ears, there are times that you may not be very comfortable and your best may not come. So you have to be very practical in starting up at college. But having said that, uh, side hustles, that is the point here. Never miss an opportunity to start something in college. You have to start it, because not today, not right after there, but it'll give you a flavor of what goes into it. The whole idea of starting up in college is, get to understand how to build things from scratch. See, in college, you may not be very, I should say, may not have a very high business acumen. Whatever you do there may not be feasible from a business perspective. But the idea here is you start to learn a lot of things. Like, you start to learn about how to build relations with people, how to build teams, how to see something from zero to a certain stage. I think these are some of the perspectives that you gain. So never miss a chance to start something in college. If your situation and if your contextual factors allow you, try to make it big. But even if it doesn't get into a full-fledged startup like you see in books and films, it'll still leave you with a lot of learning. It'll still leave you with a lot of hands-on experience that's surely going to help you. So yeah, that's how I look at starting up in college, at least.
Right. So that was a complete great evaluation answer. So then you go on to complete your MBA from IIM Indore, and talk to me about the key learnings you had at IIM.
I think an IIM is a very different space. It's a very different world altogether from an IIT. While in IIT you make friends, you start to learn how to study hard and work hard and all that grueling. When you do an MBA from a B school like an IIM, uh, some of the learnings that you take from there is your network, how the importance of networking. And although it's a cliche, like your net worth is dependent on your network and all that, but it does it is very really true, if you look at it. The problem with a lot of engineers, and at least I've seen this with a lot of people in IIT Ropar itself, is networking skills are not very strong. Networking skills are not very fine tuned. And a lot of people do not understand the meaning of networking per se. So networking is not just saying a hi on LinkedIn. It's a very quid pro quo sort of situation. You have to build relations, but you just don't ask for something. You have to strike a conversation. You have to find the common ground, and then you have to sort of do a sales of yourself in a very subtle manner, so that the person that you are trying to network with understand that he has something to gain from you, and vice versa. I think that is a skill that a B school, although it does not formally teach you that, but because you see a lot of people there from different walks of life, from different streams, from different experiences, that is something in 2 years that you can learn a lot if you are that sort of a person. So I think networking was something that I truly learned there, and the importance of it, and how essentially and of course a tributary to that is the power of the alumni network, how it can be. And we have seen this in West. If you look at colleges like Stanford and Harvard, the alumni base that they have is something that's truly marvelous. uh, Something similar in India has started to grow. Of course, older IITs has a lot of clout, but I personally got that sense of how your alumni network can help you while I was in IIM Indore, and of course, it then translated into something that's today I'm part of something which is very much related to it. So yeah, I think network and the connection is something that I learned a lot there.
Great. So about the MBA part, how did you get interested about the MBA, like in your IIT days? And also talk to me about the courses, like how are they different from an IIT perspective?
Hmm. So I was very bad at the whole engineering game, so to say. It genuinely did not interested me, and I was genuinely not something who could grasp all the mechanical engineering stuff. So by hook or by crook, MBA was one of the option which at least I could see can help me do something better with my life, because I knew in mechanical engineering, staying in India, the job scenario was something that did not particularly attracted me. I knew that I have to be really very good. I had to work very hard if I have to excel in this. But I somehow knew, coming from a city like Delhi, that I'm good with person in general. And Delhi is a place where business thrives. uh, I did have a genuine liking toward business, towards how money works, and I thought MBA was a good calculated career move from my side. That was one thing. And of course, now coming to what eventually goes into courses at an IIM and how they are very different from IIT, and I think everyone is very aware that the way the pedagogy is within an IIM, it's more into a case-based approach. Uh, and everyone knows about how case-based work and all that, but I'll try to highlight some of the important aspects there that are key learnings. When you are in a B school, your horizon expands a lot. You tend to study about a lot of businesses across the world. You tend to study about all the major five Fortune 500 companies. You study about a bakery somewhere in Texas. You study about Indian businesses that was started like 50 years back. I think, and you even study about some luxury perfume maker in Paris. I think if you read about all this continuously 2 years, you discuss about them with your classmates, with your teachers, and it's 300 odd business cases that you deep dive into. I think that starts to bring in a thinking process that eventually sets you up for the later phases of your life. I think that is how the whole curriculum of an MBA impacts you. It may not leave you with something which is very, I shall say, engineeringly concrete. It's not that you are laden with formulas that you can apply directly, but I think it develops something which is known as a thinking process in layman terms. If I have to put it. I think that thinking process develops there in those 2 years, and that sets you up for everything. That's what I think the whole courses and study materials and everything are focused upon. And of course, if you double click into it, there's economics, there are all these subjects, business models and stuff. But ultimately, it all culminates to this whole idea of developing that thinking process.
Right. So after MBA, you then went on to work at Cognizant and have been there for over 5 years. So what is it exactly that you do at Cognizant?
Yeah. So within Cognizant, I'm working as a technology consultant. So I had worked for something called as a digital transformation in buzzword that I worked for 2 years. Since last 3 years, I'm into e-commerce consulting. So what I essentially do there is I work with Fortune 500 clients, and I build up their technology roadmaps. I build up their technology architecture. Specifically, since last 3 years, it's more into e-commerce. If there's a certain brand that's selling some luxury beauty materials right there in Germany, and they want to expand globally and they want to adopt e-commerce, then there are a lot of things that goes into it, right? There are things on operations level, there are things on technology level, there are things on product side, and of course there is a business angle to it. Cognizant and technology companies generally are not something, they do not focus much on the decision of doing something, because that is what these clients already have done. But the whole idea of how it has to be done in next 5 years or 6 years or 10 years or maybe 3 years, that's where the role comes, and that's where this whole technology enablement piece come, and that's what I do uh, most part of the day. And so I wanted to be in technology in one way or another when I passed out of my MBA. Traditional sectors like FMCG and all that, they did not really sort of appeal to me much. Tech was something that I knew will grow in coming days, and that's where I just wanted to be at the heartland of it. And I think being at Cognizant has been a great experience, because in such a short period of time, you get to know about so much of those businesses from across the world, Europe, APAC, US, Canada, and all that. I think that's sort of a quick mix of what is going on around the world in technology space. I think that's something that is really worthwhile of an experience.
Right. But you decided that you needed more, and then you started side hustling, right? So how and when did you realize that now I must start something of my own or start side hustling?
Yeah. So I started something in IIT Ropar, that documentary thing. Then even when I was in IIM Indore, I had a special interest about all these, Silicon Valley sort of a businesses. And we had this one course specifically for these technology businesses, uh, and that whole interest was rekindled there. We used to do these exercise, like 100 students in an auditorium, divided into three groups of startup founders, employees, and investors, and then a computer simulation ran, and we worked there for 3 hours. And it was like a Silicon Valley model into a 3 hour conceptual working session. I think from there again, all this startup insights start taking place, and my interest even grew further in all this. Of course, my habit of reading about Steve Jobs and all of these Silicon Valley models, that also culminated. And right in my MBA also, I did intern at a startup itself. So it was a startup from with one of my friends, and we were into a startup incubator, and I spent 2 months there, and it was like the closest I could get to what startup looks like in India. And that is where I decided, hey, this is something that eventually I will get into. May not be today, may not be 2 years, but this is something I want to be in one way or another. And when I was in Pune in Cognizant, I worked there for a year, and then when I shifted to Delhi, my plan was to tinker with something, to start something in the site, see how it grows, see how it builds up, and then let's see from there how it basically pans out. And that is where all these side hustles came into play. So I worked on two side hustles with my friend, and we worked on them till some time, and then they started to grow, but they did not really went off in a traditional fashion like a startup does. But then I also realized, like, starting up is not the only way to to sort of gain that ROI from startups. There are other ways as well, and if you cannot start, uh, bet on someone who is. And I think that's where the whole idea of startup investments also culminated. So yeah, that's how it sort of started.
Right. So you're also an angel investor, like you just said, and also a startup
Yes,
mentor. And you've
yes,
previously started up two startups. So
they were side hustles. Yes,
along you were working with Cognizant. So how do you manage
yes.
so much, and how are you doing so much stuff at one time?
Yeah. So the key here is you don't have to do them all together, all time, every day. Your day job, and this is just not for me, for everyone, your day job is sort of a fixed thing, until and unless you are working at an early stage startup. At least in big companies, essentially how your day is going to be, from 9 to 6 or 10 to 7 or whatever it is. That time is sort of blocked. You have your weekends and you have your nights, so that's the time you have to play around with. So I think one of the keys, the key thing is managing your time well, when you know that this is the free time you have and you can do whatever you want with this. And that's where I started dabbling into all these things. Side hustles, there were two side hustles. They were not in parallel, so I worked on one for 1 year along with my friend, and I worked on the other for another year along with my friend. So we spent most of our weekends on that. Our weekdays were spent more around discussing, but not on actual development and coding and building relations with people. The weekends were specifically fixed for that. And given we had this inkling about how tech works, so certain things which were a little tricky or complex, we were able to grasp them little early. So we had a lot of connects in the startup world and in the tech world. So wherever we were stuck, we did not sort of got stuck on a problem for a couple of days. We always took the help of friends, we always took the help of whoever is out there industry doing it, so that just to get that clarification done quickly, because time is something that you have to save. And that's also another key lesson, right? Whenever you are in startup world, don't try to reinvent the wheel all by yourself. There is someone out there already who would have done this. Try finding that guy and get that knowledge so that you are quick in whatever you're doing. So at least the startup hustles and all that could be managed in that way. Angel investments, well, it's not a process that you do every day. It's a very slow process. Just for instance, if you are putting some seed money in a startup, the whole process can take anywhere between 2 to 5 months to close. It is that slow. So it is something you don't have to do every day. What you have to do is you have to, of course, you have to save money. That's one thing. But the other thing is you have to really good at networking, and that's where until and unless you are an HNI, until and unless you have lots of money with you, I think within angel investment, what you need to have is good networking skill. You have to start interacting with people, you have to make friends, you have to spend some time with them over weekends, over those catch-up sessions, meet them in person, or go into certain events, or maybe just have that call, and just have that conversation about something interesting that's going on. That's where you build those connections, and that's where the angel investment opportunity comes. So see, like a startup has to be scalable, in life, whatever you do, you have to do it in a scalable manner. It's not that you put X effort and Y output comes. After a point of time, it has to be something like you put X efforts and perhaps 3Y of outcome comes. Uh, and that's where networking comes handy, because it's more like your network starts working for you after a point of time. So I think those are some of the tricks, I could say, that I sort of employed over the years, and then now is the time they've sort of started giving their desired output.
Right, right. I'm sure all of us can learn a lot of lessons about productivity and time management. But to top all of this off, you also keep yourself regularly updated with courses from various sources and from Google, from Udemy. How tangible are these courses, and how are you managing these as well, along with your side hustles?
To be honest, these courses are not of much value. I'll be very blunt. Uh, but they are of value in one sense. When you just want to get a lot of knowledge about something very new, very quickly, like in an hour or two, these courses are very helpful in that sense. Let's say you want to learn about blockchain. One way is, you would read a lot of Medium blogs, you would read a lot of books, you would see a lot of scattered videos over YouTube, and then also you may not be able to get something. What you can do is you go to any of these platforms, take a good course that has been reviewed and recommended by a couple of thousands of people, and just see its videos for maybe 2 or 3 days, and you can get a good grasp of it. You can get a good quick view about something new in a fairly constant period of time, like it's something in 2 or 3 days, or even 1 hour in for some of the courses. That's the only power I think I could see for these courses. And these courses are nowhere close to your real-time experience. So, there are courses about product management, there are courses about project management, and about a lot of even coding skills, right? They can tell you something to start with. At least you will not be on a blank space. Some of the fundas, some of those industrial buzzwords that are there, all those jargons. But then until and unless you do something, it's nowhere closer to it. So my personal feeling is, do not give a lot of importance to these. But if unfortunately you want to get into something and you don't have anything on your profile or on your papers or on your resume, I think a course is something easiest that you can get. So that's how they should be seen at.
Right, right, definitely. So I think we have covered all of your story. I'm sure we'd like to stay in touch with you. But one last question about guiding the juniors. What would be your one advice for juniors at IIT Ropar?
Connect and network. That's the only thing that will take them really, really long. All other things can be maintained, your studies, your learnings, your all of these things, you can do them. And the tricky thing is, all your individual activities, how much time it will work, how much time it will take, sorry. But networking is something that takes on years and years. It takes on months. You have to start now, and you have to develop it into an habit. It's not something that you sit on a Sunday or a Saturday and you just start typing hi 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 to 20 people on LinkedIn. That's not networking. You have to sort of bring into your lifestyle. Uh, you have to be that person who can connect well with someone and then just start talking about something very interesting. I think that is something that sadly not many colleges teach, and that's something that's very important, at least in corporate world. Uh, so yeah, network a lot. There are a lot of seniors out there for IIT Ropar. I think now it's not the way it was in our time. I think you have so many people passed out. Have a word with them, try and connect with them, learn about their experiences. I think that will help a lot. That will help really, really a lot.
So that's all. Thank you for being such an amazing guest, and thank you in general for all the advice that you've given.
Thanks, Shreyas. I think happy to connect with anyone, any junior. And of course, it was a delight to be in your show. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.